The red line where it's a right angle heading and heading northwest. That is, there are pylons that are only about half a metre high, but one every 20 or 30 centimetres along that red line and then outwards. So it's the edge of where the old sea baths were. Oh. And there's quite often banjo sharks in there. Snapper follow you around as you're diving. And lots of North Pacific stars and Japanese kelp. So with ocean divers, we go and try and clean that stuff up. But then, if you go to the next picture or two.
Oh yes. Which one?
So that one, with all the, that's actually a pyramid of steel. The one where there's, that one.
This one?
That's an overhang, like there's overhangs there. Mm-hmm. It's only in about 3 meters, 3 or 4 meters. If you go to the next photo of green stuff.
Oh, the green stuff, sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a Balmain. So that's actually steel bars that have been put into the pyramids. And there's a few of them leading up to all the pylons. And they're very nice to swim around. There's cooler fish in them, lots of goatfish, of course, and puffers. And the snapper just keep following them. It's really funny.
Were they built as fish attracting devices? Or?
No, they're just piles of rubbish.
Michael built them with a couple of cave.
Did he?
And that's over 20 years.
Yeah, right.
They piled all the steel from the old bar.
Yeah, so when they deconstructed the bars, you can still see there's lots of big
20 or 30 years.
beams just lying on the ground. So they must have gathered all that together.
So they get used for cave diving drills and things.
Yeah. So the bug, I saw a live one and a dead one out there, which was a real surprise.
Yeah, alive or dead? That one there.
I think that one's dead.
Probably still eat it.
But then,
second rule.
Hey, what happens on Hogan's?
on those lines, I was helping with Ozfish doing shell deployment at Frankston Pier onto the fishing bulls that got out off the end of the pier, and we found a couple of live bugs there last year. So there are bugs in the bay.
Never seen it before.
Yeah.
I've seen one at right. It's not that often, but
Pardon?
it's not that common, but
Yeah.
I see them once or twice a year.
And last year there must have been some very strong currents or something. So if you can go to the bottles, please, because a lot of the sand got washed away from the beach, but there were all these bottles and ceramics, most of them broken. So I was collecting that sort of rubbish out of there.
They're on the beach or in the water?
They're in the water, but just only in a half metre of that, towards the north end of far north end.
They're well eroded edges.
Yeah.
Well around there for a while.
So, and nudies. There's also
Nudies
a good range of nudies out there.
People have seen blue spotted eagle ray.
Yes, the eagle ray
Eagle
sometimes
ray come around. They circle the pyramids.
Yeah.
Run around. In the middle of summer, you get
nudies, the bottles, snapper. That's it.
Blue spotted eagle rays, I've never seen those before.
So a long time ago, I was poking around the pylons, and I found a 3/4 full bottle of cordial. No, stopper. So from like 1910.
That's an Indonesian one.
So no, I had that. Still sitting at home. It's actually evaporated.
Get a fish tank, put in the fish tank. Do a recreation.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, it's a good site there for if you need to test out your dry set, for example.
Yeah.
Very close to home.
And
Things like that.
Oh, they're
Testing
good
out new
then,
kit.
they're not-
when you're swimming along and you start to see sinkers, then you know you're near the end of the rock groin because all the fishermen lose all their gear there.
Yeah.
So it's a good place for collecting lead.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack.
It's okay.
Good one.
Over to you, Sandrine.
Well, thank you. Well, over to you, Peter, because we're going to go around the room now.
Okay.
The other, because you have all the other slides.
Very true. All right, no worries. All right, I'll unshare you, or if you, okay, I'll share some slides in. Elodie, we might do you next, if that's all right.
Yep.
There we go.
So for those of you who remembered, we did a Labour Day long weekend at Phillip Island.
Mhm.
Very enthusiastically registered to, and then I think it was you, Peter, that sent the email. Oh, I can't remember, sorry. Or was it, well, I can't remember who sent the
Walter,
email.
would have been Walter.
Oh, Walter, yeah, that the conditions weren't suitable, and I went through
yeah.
a moment of, oh, and then the rest of the email said, but we could be diving in Western Port, and then I went, yeah, because that had been on my list for quite a while. And one of the reasons why is, well, Crowfish Rock, which we dived on the first day that we went there, and then this beauty on the screen, which is the bryozoan habitats. So that is for context, so probably most of you know that I'm a marine ecologist. I was working at a company called Fathom Pacific, which is a consulting firm that does marine work around Victoria. And my boss had described bryozoan reefs in Western Port in the eastern arm. And when I came on to the team a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I didn't know much about it. And then I learned that there was this thing called bryozoan reefs in Western Port, and I was very intrigued. And then about a year later, I was given the task to analyze some images that had been collected with underwater robots called ROVs. And so I was tasked with describing the biodiversity on a reef that was in a different part of Western Port. And I'll get onto that in a second, but just generally speaking, I feel like it's fascinating. No one really knows that this amazing type of ecosystem is there on our doorstep. So to start with, bryozoans are very different from corals in their organization, and they're actually, corals in a way are quite simple animals, but bryozoans are actually quite complex animals. So evolutionarily speaking, they're a lot closer to us than corals. So, but what they have in common with corals is that they build this calcium carbonate matrix or solid structure. The organisms like kind of live on that, and they can form massive structures like the same way corals can create coral reefs. And they're very significant habitat. So bryozoan reefs and habitats specifically, globally, there's only about 54 described habitats that have been sort of highlighted as significant for biodiversity. So they're literally hotspots of biodiversity because of the structure that they create. So a lot of animals can take refuge in their little nooks and crannies amongst the bryozoans, and they also modify the currents. So that means that because of their relief, so the fact they're so big, they slow down currents. So that means that larvae can settle down and then other things can grow. So sea stars, sea urchins, ascidians, sponges, lots of different things. So yeah, that's why they have such, they're known as habitat with such high biodiversity. But most of the bryozoan habitats in the world actually happen really deep. I mean, it depends what you call really deep, but not in our kind of depth as recreational divers. So usually kind of around 100, 150 meters or so. There are some shallowers. In Australia, there's only about 4 areas where bryozoans have been described as significant habitat. The Great Australian Bight, Bass Strait, Tassie, Western Port, and the Coorong Lagoon. So there's 4 areas. But what makes Western Port very unique is that, first of all, the bryozoans, they are really, really shallow. I'm talking 4 meters, so that shallow. So that's a big difference between Western Port and sort of the rest of the world in a way. But also, and we think that the reason why they appear in such shallow waters, that, as probably some of you know, at least some of you, Western Port's very murky. That's not natural per se to start with. It's that all the agriculture, like the rivers and everything, have been changed so much, and the region has been transformed with agriculture. So all that runoff now comes into Western Port, and that's why Western Port's so murky, and it's also challenging to dive there because of the tidal currents that are so strong. So in combination, these 2 factors, the fact that it's very murky and the very strong currents, create habitats where a lot of other things that we usually outcompete bryozoans can't grow. So usually bryozoans are found really deep because they can't grow, they can't outcompete algae because they grow very, very slowly, and algae tends to grow a lot faster. So algae just takes over the substrate, and then bryozoans just can't live there. So we think that's the reason why in Western Port there's this habitat that are very significant. I'll get you to switch to the next slide.
What sort of height were the ones you found?
About meter and a half.
I didn't realise that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else about being hard to get to all that. It's hard dropping divers off too.
You're so shallow.
No, the bloody wind.
The-
God, the gale.
So,
You can't anchor.
You can't anchor.
yeah, you can't. Yeah, so I'll talk
You can't-
about
You
that
can't see
also.
anyone.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, so I'll talk about safety consideration just as a wrap up when I'm done. But just to orient ourselves, so I've taken this map from one of the papers describing the bryozoans, and so you see where Western Port is, like the red, what a rectangle or square, and then you've got, so where we dived with VSAG was where the eastern arm is on the right hand side of the map, so kind of near Coronel. But then you've got 2 other marks on the left, so the north arm and the western arm. And actually what's very interesting is that the eastern arm have, and that's been described now for quite a few years, but the bryozoan reefs where we dived, that's actually considered a proper reef, as opposed to the rest of them. They haven't yet been classified as reefs, so there's scientifically there's some conditions that need to be met for a place to, like a habitat to be called a reef. It has to be extensive enough, and it has to be like high enough in heights, like standing out of the substrate enough. And so we know that the eastern arm bryozoan habitats are reefs, but we're not sure whether the north arm and western arm are actually reefs, or they're significant habitats regardless, but they might not be able to be classified as reefs scientifically.
Because they're not extensive enough?
We just don't know if they are, but they could not. Yeah, it could be that they're not. Just there hasn't been enough research that's been done, because, as I said before, like there's a lot of challenging associated with studying these ecosystems, because it's murky, because it's hard, the currents make it hard, you can't drop divers easily, so that makes research on this hard. But regardless, something that's very interesting, I found that fascinating because it's not that far away, but the structure of the reefs and habitats are actually quite different. So in the eastern arm, I'll get you to switch to the next slide actually to illustrate this. In the eastern arm, the reefs are dominated by that cream color you see in the middle underneath the title. So that cream color, that's called folio, so very like a leaf almost. It's very thin, has a lot of holes in it. It's very delicate. So if you touch that, you'll probably break it. So they're very, very fragile. And in this, even though overall Western ports have quite strong tidal currents, in these specific areas, compared to the North Arm and Western Arm, the currents are actually quite a lot slower. So this is why this very delicate kind of form of horizons can persist. So the two photos in the middle are like close up of these species, and then you see and these were taken in other places. They were taken in Port Phillip actually, but then the pictures on the left and right, these were taken on the Labor Day long weekend. I'll get you to switch to the next slide to show as a comparison. So these are photos from the compilation of photos from ROVs, so underwater robots, and you see that the morphology is actually really quite different. So in these places, it's quite a lot deeper. We're talking about sort of 13 to 18 meters as opposed to sort of 4 to 6 meters in Eastern Arm. So these habitats, they're dominated by two species that are really quite different. So the orange one and the purple one, and actually really thick and really robust because there's a lot more currents in this area. I haven't dived there. I don't know anyone who's dived there. I've only ever reviewed images that were taken by underwater robots, essentially. So that'd be interesting to see how that really looks like.
What sort of depth are we talking about?
So Eastern Arm is 4 to 6 roughly, and Northern Western Arm is sort of 13 to 18. So yeah, quite a lot deeper and quite a lot of differences in terms of how the species form and how how they're shaped by the currents and those conditions that are challenging.
Is that the first time we did it? That's what, that deeper one?
No.
That's a different spot again.
Yeah, that was crawfish rock.
Yes.
That was
Crawfish
different
one.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this we haven't dived, and I haven't yet. I don't know what that looks like.
I've heard that that's quite currents can be very strong there and
it would
dangerous.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
boats anyway.
So how old are these reefs?
Centuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Port Phillip Bay has a lot of dredging and scallop harvesting and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Western Port didn't.
No. And so thank you. That's actually a very good point, because one thing I forgot to mention is that, so probably some of you know that Western Port used to have, as the bay did, quite a lot of oyster reefs. And we think that this potentially is what the bryozoans colonized, so grew over.
Oh, okay.
But now that's all gone, and most of that, so that base, because the bryozoans can't just settle on mud or sand, they need a hard structure. So like oyster shells, mussels, whatever it was at the time. But now all that base is under like lots of mud that have accumulated, so you can't see it. So to the keeper's eye who's untrained, it just kind of looks like it's sitting on the sand, but it's not. It has like a deeper base, almost like roots that anchor these structures on the seafloor. But that's the reason why these ecosystems are so at risk now with anchor damage and other pressures on the environment, pollution, climate change, you name it, because it wouldn't necessarily be the case that if damaged, they could regrow. The substrate that they need, whatever surface they need to grow on, probably isn't there anymore. So that's one of the reasons why we need to be very careful what we do around these habitats, including not dropping anchors everywhere.
I almost should have a no anchor zone around.
Yes, in some areas where you can go anchoring, but yeah.
Could we create offshore structures for them?
like they do in Port Phillip.
potentially,
Well,
but
there's an oyster reefs in what
Yeah, but they're doing artificial ones out down a layer of rocks about that high.
so
They
Yeah.
put oyster shells on it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
nature conservancy doing that. Yeah.
yeah, so we could, but the problem is they grow very, very slowly. Right? So if any other things change in the environment in that period of time, then So yeah, I'll just get to the next slide, I guess. And I know that most people wouldn't necessarily want to read a scientific paper for the sake of it, but I did put the QR codes there if anyone wants to scan them, just because they are coordinates of the sites where the studies were done, and there's more info. And particularly the one on the right, I know because I was the one who wrote it, so it's in a language that's quite accessible, and there's lots of photos as well, so you can actually just browse these papers, not for the scientific knowledge, but just to see a bit how it looks like, and if you want to share it with anyone.
Yeah. We can put the links to these on the website.
Website.
When we post this.
Yep. And so just a last sort of wrapping up, this is really, really cool. I found that extraordinary that we have these structures and this ecosystem so shallow, but obviously diving there comes with a lot of challenges. You've got to be very aware of the currents, the tides as well, the wind, all that, for both boating and diving. And what we did at Crawfish Rock, and I think you did it as well, Angus, at the Frozen Reefs, is to shoot an SMB through the whole dive so that the boats can know where the divers are, because currents can change quite quickly. Slack time is quite limited, so you might only get half an hour there, and also because it's so murky, you've got to make sure you're either comfortable without a buddy, but you have like a system for that to stay safe, or you avoid the dive if you're not comfortable diving with a buddy. But so these are places where, conditions are challenging. I think it's well worth it. But that being said, I think it's cool to see the structures. We saw a bit less life than I anticipated in terms of fish life. We saw a lot of sea stars, sea urchins, ascidian sponges, things like that. These are things that don't move, so they might not be as interesting for other people. I think people look at fish. There is quite a diversity of fish, but I think it's also seasonal. Signal, it might also depends on the tide and the overall conditions. So, but I think it's well worth it, and it's very interesting because it's a place where this kind of habitats just aren't available in most of the world to divers like us.
And from a boat skipper's point of view, the SMB was essential. Even a really strong wind, he's not said that. Because strong winds, you're swept away immediately. And when they put the SMB up, well, I couldn't believe how far away they were. We could have done by GPS, I mean, still. It was essential. And the other reason to be essential is if other boats come along.
Can I say, I'm rapt to see how enthusiastic you are about this, because our late member, Dr. Jan Watson, this was her favourite place.
Oh, really? Is that right?
And we took her ashes to the Crawfish Rock after she passed away. So that was a big VSAG place back in the early days, and she was obsessed with the wildlife there. Particularly, her specialty was hydroids. I don't know whether they're there. I've not dived the rock myself, but it's just interesting that after all this time after she's gone, that someone is still so passionate about it. Because I reckon most divers just wouldn't go there. If your average diver,
well, we wouldn't have gone there except that the weather was no good. I wouldn't be not keen on taking my bucket. Couldn't get out of here. I wouldn't have thought you'd ever dive in Western Port. I wouldn't have thought that's possible. So it's good to take.
Well, hopefully Jan was looking down. She would have been.
There's no craze there, girl.
That's right.
Can you do me a favour and go on Google and type brachiopod? That's something I didn't mention, but it's kind of, there's a specific type of BRACHIOPOD. This is something I didn't mention, but that just popped into my head. there's a type of animal called brachiopod, also called lamp shells, like a lamp. And they're very, evolutionary speaking, they're like super ancient and very interesting. They look like bivalves, so like a mussel or a clam or an oyster, but they're evolutionary speaking, they're quite different. And Western Port has that. The Bryozoan reefs and Crowfish Rock actually also have that. And it's fascinating that you found these things that are not found in very many places as well. And I should have added a photo for anyway. I can share later if people are interested.
There's another rock there called Eagle Rock.
Mm.
I think, and I don't know much about it, but I believe that's one of Jan's favourite spots. But certainly Crawfish Rock. I mean, to have a ashes spread there, she's pretty keen on it.
Yeah.
Mine aren't going there.
Yours will be under your wife's thumb.
The photo on the middle, like the second one on the, and then the white one.
Yeah.
These are what they kind of look like. The one I saw on the Bryozoan reefs and at Crowfish Rock, this is kind of what they look like. And they don't look like fish, but just they have a very interesting evolutionary trajectory.
Is that related to the electric clams?
No,
No?
because the electric clam, they have cool adaptations, but they're bivalve.
Yeah.
So it's just the normal two shells kind of animals.
Yeah.
But this is quite different. Yeah.
You need to get a job.
Excellent.
Thanks, Ellie. So in fact, that weekend, the long weekend, there was Elodie, Walters of Striving, Angus, Mike King is on night tonight.
Hang on.
The last one is that. I wouldn't get. You want to check that?
I was just saying, so a lot of the people in the meeting tonight were diving that whole weekend in that heat period there.
It was good to know about Jan Watson's interest. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I've got some terrific photos of her. She'll bring them. Very passionate about that area. Yeah. She tried to get me up there a few times, but I didn't like the idea of going up that end of them. She was definitely a mud skipper.
Yeah.
And she was in her 80s, I might add.
Yeah.
She was in her 80s.
Yeah, amazing.
When I was diving.
Well, thanks, Elodie. Right, Ian, you're there, Ian?
Yeah, I just need to, because I'm having a few computer issues, but let me sign into the club meeting on my computer and I can talk a little bit about the ship's graveyard. I could probably defer it to Des because he knows a lot more about it than I do. But I do have some rather dull slides. Just give me a second. I'm just connecting.
All right. Okay, John, if you're pumped for your discussion.
Open up that email.
Yeah. So, Ian, I'll get John to do his while you get yourself sorted.
Yeah.
All righty. Let me just bring up the other presentation. I've turned your photos into a presentation, John.
That's fine. Yeah. You're too good at that stuff.
IT Chris.
Yeah, that's right.
There we go.
Oh,
sharing.
Hello.
So at the moment, under the auspices of VNPR, Victoria National Park Association, and FNCV, Field Naturalist Club Victoria, they've got a permit authorised by the government for us to go and collect slugs. So we have to go and get licensed by the Marine Search Group from FNCV to do this stuff. So Ian and I and a couple of others have done the course.
Brilliant.
And so at the moment they're sampling these slugs because they're taking little bits of them. They're doing fantastic photos like Leron's done here, and Peter just flick through the photos this week. So we deliver them slugs in little jars, and they turn them into these images. So this helps with sensitive identification. Yeah, at the moment, no.
Okay.
But now they've been photographed, they've been measured, described, sample of the tail's been taken, so some DNA analysis can be done.
They're really less healthy.
And that's right. And then they're preserved, and so they'll be sent to the museum as reference specimens.
Wow.
So the whole point of this piece of work is to try and get some more name and structure around living breeds in Victoria.
Brilliant.
because every time we go diving, there's a lot that we know, but there's a lot we come back and can say, well, that's a spook.
Yeah.
So this is about trying to get us beyond spook to at least a name or something that other people can refer to in the future and look back at. So we're licensed to go out at the moment because there's a special grant for one of the to have the DNA extracted and do the analysis. And then at a later date, someone will match that DNA work with the morphological work that's done here. So we've got a reference specimen to then to be able to put a name on it. So that thing there is something that Ian and I have been seeing under Blair for a while, and it's just known as a spook. And when Leon posted this up, there was 2 or 3 other people chimed in from around the world with, oh, that could be a this, that could be a that sort of thing. So this is what it's all about. It's just trying to definitively put some names on stuff.
So a nudibranch, like, are they specific to a particular area? You might get that one over in the United States, because I mean, they don't move around much, do they?
No, they don't. But what's interesting is over the last few years, a lot of the newer ones that I've been seeing, they're from around the world. So what I think's going on is these ships, as they pass by and look at ballast off, I can do and so stuff is showing up now that we haven't seen or hasn't been seen before. And there's a whole lot of environmental change and stuff going on too, which we've got no idea what it means.
We also don't know what was endemic 50
exactly.
years ago or 100 years ago.
Because in the nudibranch world, the first thing people ask for is, where are you? And that helps narrow their thoughts down to what it might be. But people around Australia, around the world, are finding stuff that says, oh, this should be from here, but it's actually here. So what the hell is it?
So if there's got a larvae or something like that, that can be floating around.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so at the moment, we've got about, there's a spreadsheet there, doesn't matter, don't need to open it, but there's about 230 odd samples that we've got so far. And so there's Audrey and Leon, who are the 2 people who've got the lab in their backyard, they've got cameras, all sorts of stuff to do this sort of imagery. They take the samples there, 30 or 40 sample jars, and Audrey goes, right, back to work. And so they're just poor.
And they survive in the jars.
Yeah, because we bring them in the very next day, sort of thing. And so Audrey will stay up all night, measuring and describing and all that stuff. Yeah. No, she's very enthusiastic.
So they're based down that way somewhere.
Yeah, just in Houston, near me. Yeah.
How big is this one?
That one's about 12 millimetre.
You need a lot for a feed, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say, they look delicious.
And a very thin skewer too. That's right. Yeah, so by the end of May is when the funding sort of runs out, and then, but in the background there's a bit of work that keeping some funding going. So if we find stuff, whoever's doing the work, find stuff that needs description, there will be something done. So.
Is it Museum Victoria?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, otherwise we've still got money for that.
Yeah. Donald's doing his best to take it away.
That's right. Go and see this thing. That's brilliant.
Thanks, John. How are you looking, Ian?
Yep, I think, share.
Why is your computer struggling, Ian? That's what we want.
Oh, mate, I've already lost all the work I've done. I've had to start again.
Oh, shit.
You really should up using that. 98%.
Thanks.
You need to get an apple.
Sorry, it won't be a second. I just got to enable Zoom to share my screen.
Watching the IT crowd this week.
Is it turned on at all?
Very good.
You guys, and IT, and one was just called Toto, because all he'd say.
Right, we're right.
No one else in IT.
Yay.
You got that?
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got this horrible thing in the middle, so let me just get rid of that. Right. So my sort of amongst my favourite dive areas is the ship's graveyard, and we're extremely lucky being located where we are. In if you like a shipwreck, we have a fantastic resource out there in Bass Strait that is available to divers. So I don't know what people know about the ship's graveyard, but basically it goes back to 1910, and the first ship was put down out there at that time. And there's always been a problem with ships as they come to the end of their life about what do you do with them, and really what gets done with them depends on the economic situation at the time. So if there's a good price for scrap metal, it can make cutting the ships up and reusing the material profitable, but at certain times that hasn't been the case. And so looking for a solution, what we arrived at was strip off them everything of value and then tow them out to sea and sink them to get rid of them. And this was going on all around Australia. In Victoria, there was a designated area called Area 3, which is outside Port Phillip Heads and beyond Barwon Heads. I'll show you it on a map. So this sinking of ships went on all the way until the early 1970s. So that the last ship down is one of the ones that I've dived, which is VHB 53. No one really knows how many wrecks are out there because the record keeping wasn't particularly great. The official records show 37, but it's believed that there could be up to 48 out there. And these wrecks are sent down and really they're forgotten until the 1970s, when a group of divers really led by Jeff Naylor and Jimmy Anderson started to investigate insights from fishermen about pieces of metal being brought up in nets, obvious fish activity down there. And they started to look for and dive these sites. And actually the first wreck that group discovered was the wreck of the Faulkner back in 1972. A few years back in 2022, I was part of a group who took a rather elderly Jeff and Jimmy back to dive the Faulkner on the 50th anniversary of them discovering it. It was quite an emotional thing to do. Jeff really wasn't fit enough to do anything other than get into the water and hang at a reasonable depth waiting for Jimmy, who we babysat all the way down to the Faulkner at 45 metres. The visibility was horrendous, but we took his picture next to the boiler. That was my task on the day. So you can imagine my delight at finding the viz to be like 1.5 meters to 2 meters. But I did get a picture of him with metal behind. So I think I achieved the goal. And we had to physically stop him from swimming off and exploring the wreck. And just to put this into perspective, while we dive these wrecks on twin sets with decompression gases, Jimmy dived it on his original single cylinder dive gear from the 1970s. Anyway, so side story. So where's the ship's graveyard? So you can see to the Torquay side of the map is the original Area 3. And as that area filled up, they kind of started to spread into new areas and came in close to Port Phillip Heads. So I think you'll recognise some of the names as the wrecks that the club dives fairly frequently. But also you'll notice that there's a lot of shipwrecks out there, and probably a lot of names that you don't recognise because, frankly, those don't get dived that often. I created this. This is quite interesting because I was trying to indicate to you the sort of depths that the wrecks sit at. But it painted a picture of that helped me understand my own diving, I guess. Because what you'll see is that to dive these wrecks, you need to move through the technical. You need to move from recreational to technical, and then you need to move from basic technical into more advanced technical. And you'll see that some of the wrecks are in bold. Well, they're the wrecks that I've dived. So I think you can see why I've sort of taken the course that I have with technical diving, because, you know, I did very quickly the recreational depth ones. I did a lot of the extended range ones just recreationally, as a lot of us have done. But it's not that sensible to be diving to those depths on a single tank. And you don't get long down there, but we've done it. But it's much more suited to doing it with more gas and accelerated decompression. And then you see that soon you've done those, and you take the next course and you start to do the next set of wrecks. The only trouble is that the recreational ones get dived very often. The extended range ones don't get dived very often. And the normoxic and hypoxic ones get dived very, very infrequently because there just aren't that many people that have got the certs to do the dives. So, you know, I would love to dive these more often, but we don't really get the opportunity. The only way we get to dive the deeper wrecks is when we, in effect, charter the boat and fill it with our own technical diving group. It's the only way that we get to dive those wrecks, really. So I thought it was interesting. I mean, I don't know whether people realise just how many wrecks there were out there. And I guess, you know, the last thing is it really explains why Melbourne is so big in technical diving terms in Australia. Because,
hey, Ian,
yeah.
Sorry. How does you've dived, you know, all around the world on wreck sites and that? How does it compare with some of the other major, wreck locations?
Look, I mean, I think, you know, what you got to remember about all of these wrecks is that they're scuttling, right? Yeah. So they had a lot of stuff stripped off them. Oh, yeah. So, you know, some of them can be quite bare. Not all of them. You know, a lot of them have got really nice features. You know, there's still propellers on some. You know, Casablanca's got a lovely, great big helm wheel. You know, you've got big, you've got big structures on the Beverwick, so they're not proper shipwrecks in my view, because they don't have a substantial sinking story. But like any ship, they've got a story. And there's a lot of variety. So you'll notice there's a lot of different types of ship out there. From, iron barks, which are masted ships, almost the transition from sailing ship to iron ships, to, dredges, to tugs, to steamships, to military boats. We've got a huge variety. So, what is unusual, Pete, though, is to have this many wrecks in one location. Outside of Truck Lagoon and Bikini and the big naval battle areas, I can't think of anywhere around the British Isles, but, in most of the world, there's not this concentration of shipwrecks that we've got. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Yeah. So, if you like your shipwrecks, you live in the right place, but you need to take the next steps in diving to fully appreciate what we've got out there, because you need to go deeper for longer. That's it. Done.
Thanks, interesting. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Ed.
Very good. Thank you. Now, I think that leaves us with Andrew is our final one. Is that right, Sandrine?
Yeah, and I've got a few pictures from Phil Watson about jawbone, if we have time. No, but
Well, we'll do it now, and then we'll let Andrew. He's a very professional presenter as well. He can do whatever.
It's not much to stretch over.
Mine will be very quick, because not that long ago we had that beautiful talk by Sandy Webb about jawbone, so I won't tell you about all the. I will just share the photo, and those photos are all from Phil Watson, who is with a jawbone, and in fact he's giving a talk on the 17th of June, I think, about his experience in lake diving around Victoria. So, but yeah, so for those who don't know, jawbone, it's off Williamstown. Williamstown is just there to this side, and then you keep going, and at the end of Rifle Range Drive, you either kind of go to around there to park, or there is a nice little car park there, and then it's a little walk to the beach there of Jawbone where you go in. So it's quite rocky. So at night time, it's, unless you have some lights on the water to know where to come back in, it can be tricky when you don't have the light. I dived that site quite a few times. I've snorkeled a lot as well there. Let me show you some pictures. So there is a whole kind of bunch of life in there. Beautiful seagrasses of all different types. And don't ask me for the names. I'm not Elodie, although I'm French as well, but that's all we have in common. Yeah, lots of rays as well in the sandy parts of it. And then, usual your Jackson shark. Oh, night times is beautiful down there because of those little guys. Yeah, they're so colorful and magic. And when they get a bit annoyed at you, once I had one that came struck right to my light and then realized, oh, bummer, that's big. And then it left again, and there's a big things of black ink that was they're so cute. They're beautiful. Yeah, more grasses, and I think my favorite is the Oh yeah, not bad. Well, the zebrafish. There is every time pretty much I've snorkeled or dived there, I came across a school of zebrafish, and they are just magic. Yeah. So, and fish life there is quite amazing. If you haven't gone there, I really highly recommend going for a shore dive there. And if you want to go there, just give myself or James, a yell. I'm sure I'm happy to take you there anytime. James, do you want to add anything? It's one of your side as well, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a jawbone specialist.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Great, thanks, Andrew.
That's terrific.
Let me.
How do I? Oh yeah, stop sharing.
Okay. All right, so I'll just grab Andrew's slides and I'll let him control the machine.
It's interesting, no one's mentioned Wilson's Prom.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hard to get to these days.
Good point.
But you could have.
I can, but from time to time I do. We've got to have a ride. I need a couple of boats. So I had 2 more boats on Sunday I might have tried. But Angus was going out of the boat there and he can't. Well, another one is Arch Rock. Well, do you read your emails?
Oh, I'm sitting at home all weekend thinking shit.
You were
Only someone called me.
Your boyfriend actually mentioned it to you. Your boyfriend mentioned it to you. I know he did.
Which one? Oh, yeah. I think.
I'm going to try and wrap this into 5 minutes ish and cut out all my side stories. But I'm talking about favourite dive sites from the point of view of technology, which I've just adapted this season. Some boat users might be very familiar with this, but to me it's fairly new. I've loaded the Navionics charts onto my sounder.
We've had it for 10 years.
Yeah. so you can go home early.
Killjoy.
Unless you're waiting for the exam to get. Anyway, look, I'm pretty excited about it. You do pay an annual subscription, and for the subscription, you have the rights for them to take all your data off you.
Sounds like normal internet.
Yeah. So every time you plug the SIM card into your computer for an update, all your soundings get loaded in the cloud before they offer you to download. So what happens is all the boat owners are gathering more and more data and refining the images as we go on. So I'm just going to take you on a little tour of some of my favourite sites from what I've done this summer since I've got this software. We're going to start sort of from just before Bowen Heads around the Canberra. We're going to head up through the heads, round here. We're going to head around to Rosebud and then finish up in this little corner here, which looks like nothing. But anyway, we'll see when we get there. So down near Bowen Heads, we've got the Canberra that everyone's familiar with. Well, what I found interesting when I first loaded the software is just look at the sand rip that's sitting in. Like, when they chose to position it there, I just found that interesting that there's all these reefy spots, and they found that as the sand patch to drop it in. I don't know why, but anyway. So
That's how old the technology is.
I don't know if any of you have seen the camera in that resolution before, but I think that's pretty incredible. When I had Dave Geeky out with me, I asked him which cabin number he wanted me to drop him on, because I mean, you can see the deck at the back here, the helicopter deck. It's fairly clear. Like when you know the wreck, you can sort of pick out. And as we scan this more and more, it will get better clarity.
Incredible.
But when we go to something like the J4, it's a smudge. And I spent quite a lot of time scanning that yesterday with John Alden in his boat, and I don't actually think that blob there is even the submarine. From what I witnessed, what I observed, the submarine roughly sits that way. So it's very little scanning has actually gone into that. So that'll be interesting down the track when we get resolution on it. And great for sort of doing dive planning once we've got that kind of resolution. Heading up we're heading back towards the Port Phillip Heads now. We've got Dragon's Lair, and I was really excited when I first loaded the software because I don't have all of the scuba marks loaded on my sounder, and I looked at this beautiful bit of reef here, and I thought, oh wow, there's no dive site name there, so I put there no name yet. Anyway, I've since been back to Scuba Doctor's site, and yeah, it's called the Steps. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I thought, you know, that's some interesting territory. But it's great that you can sit in your shed looking at your sounder and plan your next dive, looking at, wow, look at this structure here. Look at that. Like, look at these gullies and what's going to be in there. So anyway.
That'll give you a GPS.
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely, yep,
Wow,
yep. Well, I was sitting in the campground when I put this no name yet, and I thought,
Andrews.
I thought, well, next time I'm out, I'm going to check out no name yet.
So name it after 10 years.
Yeah. So moving a little bit further back towards the heads, one of Geeky's favourite spots he's been to a lot is Castle Rock, and then I found this blob next to it. So I dropped Elodie and Matt at, I called it Castle 2, and they went and explored that. Similar sort of territory, would you say, Elodie?
It was fun. It's a bit different. Like there's a interesting swim through, like that goes quite deep in the middle of like the rock, like a crevice in the middle of the rock, which has a lot of interesting fish. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, so this software sort of led us to go and explore that new area, which I think, you know, that's something that's exciting for divers to try and look at other places that perhaps haven't already been documented.
Yeah. One day you'll hit gold. You really will hit.
Yeah.
You'll hit a river site.
Yeah. And so that's a close up of the two castles, Castle Rock, Castle 2, and Castle 2. Well, like you can see by the sounding lines, those depth marks is from the few laps we've done. But as we increase the data, this will get more refined over time. Now we're heading in through the heads. And first interesting thing that grabbed me here is the dredge. See the pale green here? That's what they dredged 15 years ago, whatever it was, when they opened up the head. So that's all. There's a note on the chart says this is guaranteed 17 metres depth, so it's all around about 18 metres deep. And the rip, see they just chiseled the top off that mountain there, but the original riverbed's as it is. So it sort of gives you a different perspective on it. This side here is called the Cave. That's one of the Scuba Doctor marks. Once again, I've dropped quite a few divers on that site this season. I never got to dive it, but they all came back with roaring reviews of the Cave. Right, and then as we head through, so this is a close-up of the rip. Now, where that marker is in the middle, that's 80 metres deep. And bear in mind, we're 18 metres here. Just a couple of metres on further on. Yesterday, I was driving John's boat in through the heads with Sholey and I, and we had this live map up on the screen as we came in, and you could feel the boat shifting sideways, like you're dropping rubber on a wet road or whatever. But having this in front of you gives you a perspective of why you get that boiling. You know, when you've got the tides coming up, the water boils in some spots, and then you get this dead flat section. Having that 3D view of what's happening underneath you is, sort of changed my perspective.
What's the depth of that? You said they knocked the top off there. What's the depth there? It's been years since I've been.
So that's 18 metres. They've cut it to.
Sorry, where's your cursor?
In the middle of the green island.
Oh, yeah, I can just see it. Yeah.
So that's 18 metres.
Yeah.
And that white square in the middle, that's 80 metres.
Right, okay.
So that's the old Yarra River bed.
And that big flat bit's what they dredged, is what you're saying?
Yeah, they just chisel. But see, here's an interesting point. Just here, that point there is where the dredging finished.
Right.
I want to dive that spot.
Yeah.
I want to know what the side of the cut looks like and what's happened in the 15 years since the dredge. Like like the regeneration, what's actually happening.
How smooth is the cut? Is anybody going across it?
Are there any craze?
I don't know, but it just opens up so many questions for me, so many sites that I want to go and see next season, given this kind of thought process of what Anyway, moving further up the river. So now we're up to, so this is bottom left corner there. We've got that. So this is Nepean Wall. Lonsdale Wall. And I've dropped a lot of people in around Lonsdale Wall. This is a fairly common site. Those beautiful overhangs and caves.
Yeah.
And a little bit further up here, we've got a thing. It's called the swim through, which is this. You drop down. You got your 18-metre shelf, and you go down to about 22, and then there's a big chasm drops down to 30 metres with a lump of rock hanging off the side. When you look at this, you can actually see the lump of rock that has subsided. I don't know what's the geotechnical word for it, but this light bit here is the side of the canyon that has fallen off. And now the dive is actually to go. You drop in here, drop down there, and you swim through the gap between this subsided lump of rock. And it's quite dark in there, so the biodiversity is different in there compared to other parts of the wall, because you're shaded from the north still, but you've also got the rock on the south. Anyway, just opens up ideas for dive sites. So now the Eliza Ramsden. Okay, so here's a little overview shot. I'm going to describe two sites at once here. So that's the Eliza Ramsden. You see my cursor? And down here, waypoint 228, that's where we're going to next. And that's not, anyway, so we'll get to it. Okay. The Eliza Ramsden, first of all, it's near the shipping lane, and you're always told, make sure that you're clear of shipping for a couple of hours. So you sort of visualise, you sit there at the Eliza Ramsden, and you can see the channel markers to the north, and you visualise there's this great big trench to the north of you where the ships go through. You just think, oh yeah, this is on the flat ground where the ship is. There's a trench up north. But what didn't occur to me until I got this detail is, you know what? The trench is actually the riverbed. That is the most significant part of it. This dark area here. So yeah, there's the slight etching for the excavation. When you're sounding for it, you come from like 32 metres. You're sounding up. Look at the territory. Look how rugged it is. Where the Ramsden sits. So Alan and I dived it about 2 months ago, and we tried sounding it first of all to verify our mark, and you've got Buckley's. Because look at the territory. It's sitting on a precipice. So that's the Ramsden, and then a little bit south of there is the FADs, so the fish attracting devices. So I fish. If the fishing licence is paid for these concrete structures to be put in. And the reports from the divers I dropped there is not a lot of fish, but lots of growth on these concrete things. I dropped in there with Christine, and we actually missed this part of the dive. But this mark up the top here is where we dropped in, and we got kind of waylaid retrieving this huge anchor, which was pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. But the fascinating thing to me about that dive is looking at the Great Southern Reef in its profile on such a fine scale. So it very quickly drops to sand. This is all a sandy base. And as you swim along here, you can see about maybe 8 or 10 metres underneath the shelf. And the shelf's about 1 metre thick. Not a great site for the living things, but to me it's just interesting looking at the profile of the lava flow at that point. It's kind of the thin end of the wedge, if you like. So yeah, that was interesting. Heading up towards quarantines, you're using this data. I call this quarantine wall. There's several marks for quarantine dive sites, but this just gives you the depth of detail that you know that there's probably going to be more of interest in that section of wall. Probably not as much crockery or bottles, but it's an interesting shape. And heading further up, Portsea Hole. So see how the soundings are compiling on top of each other and how thick they are here. You're going to have some nice drop-offs in that area. So the mark for Portsea Hole, in my opinion, is a little bit north, or you want to go a bit sort of southeast of that. See this area here? I reckon that's the hot spot. So I reckon the mark should be here, or you just tell your divers.
So Andrew, how deep is the deepest part of the hole now?
It's Portsea Hole about 32.
32.
Yeah. Yeah, well, anyway, I love that image of Pussing Hole. So Rosebud Reef down the bottom left corner here. All right, that nice little structure there. But go a kilometre to the right. Look at this. I don't know. Has anyone dived that horseshoe?
Hurricane?
No,
Probably not.
no, we're quite a few kilometres from the hurricane.
Okay.
But yeah, it's an interesting shape, isn't it? It's probably just part of the spoil grounds where they did a donut while they had the tailgate open. I don't know.
Andrew?
We call it the horseshoe.
Do you? Right, so is that Grant's horseshoe, or is that just the generic horseshoe? All right, and right. So just back to ROV. This is my second last slide. Just to remind you, we've sort of gone in through the heads here, round here. We've had the fads, the shipwreck, and we've got down to the reef there. Now we're going up to this little area here. You see the creek bed?
Oh, yeah, you can't see.
Where is it?
Mid-Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, next. So far right hand side of the screen. I've named this a Port Phillip hole. The wall, from what I've gathered off the zooming in and out of the data, it looks like about a 5 metre high wall. There are no marks, no dive marks anywhere close to it. It's reasonably close to the oyster farm on the left. It's reasonably close to a kilometre from the Geelong shipping channel.
Who named this? Who named this?
Yeah, I did.
Your hole.
Port Phillip hole.
Yeah.
It's in the middle of Port Phillip Bay.
Yeah.
It's a temporary name.
Yeah, it's a place marker.
Andrew, you say AI for that one.
It might be renamed Sandy Waste of Time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's all I wanted to show. Just so as this data gets improved, we'll get more and more clarification. So yeah, just
What sort of depth is that in?
on the top above the hole, the plane, the general surface is about 19-20 metres.
Yeah.
And it looks like about a 26 metre bottom. But see, I don't know if the resolution's good enough. See here it pixelates.
Oh yeah.
That's because no boat has ever used this software and gone over that.
Oh, right.
So it's a pale green because it doesn't know, so it just guesses, well, it's going to be green, whatever. Whereas this, boats are actually driven over this and it's got better data.
Fuel prices are cheap at the moment. You should just go for it.
Yeah. I'll get the Hogan boat to take me.
Lock it in there.
Really.
Good on you, Andrew.
Guys, there's some good spots down in what we don't always just go up. I don't know where you guys get that on. So you've got if the next couple of months there's a weekend when you do a prom trip, you can get a couple of beach launchable boats. Try and do that. From Inverloch, you can also go to Arch Rock, which is a very good site. I don't normally go there, but if people twist my arms, they want to go and take photos or, do weird stuff like that, you could probably
Everyone did
and there's also spots in the Marine Reserve in Inverloch, and again, if somebody wants people twisting my arm, I'll consider it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Peter.